AI hallucination is almost exactly what it sounds like, to where you can ask AI a question and it may not know it, or it may not have access to the information, or it may be overwhelmed with data, et cetera, so forth, and it will just make shit up. What's up, world? It's your boy, Jaron Ikner, back again with another episode of the PolyArtist Podcast. This is a podcast for the multifaceted, multi-talented, multimedia artists like myself who specialize in different lanes, whether it's video, photography, writing, or other creative lanes. And the whole idea is this is supposed to give you insight on how to approach being a polyartist, which can be very difficult, but highly rewarding if you figure out how to do it. If you're coming across this video or podcast episode via the algorithm just randomly, do me a favor, dive in, maybe you learn something. But keep in mind that this is for artists only. You don't have to be an artist to listen to this podcast, but if you're not an artist, you're probably not going to benefit as well as an artist who is trying to figure out the polyartist world. So with that said, we're going to dive into this episode. This is an episode that I've been waiting to make. I was putting it off for a while, mostly because it's such a controversial topic, especially in the world of artistry. And I'm talking about AI. Yes, the big AI just coming through and messing everything up, from ChatGPT and Claude and MidJourney. I feel there's a big stigma and a lot of fear around AI. And I know from personal experience that AI is probably one of the most important things to happen to me in my career in terms of efficiency, creativity, et cetera, so forth. But I also know there's a lot of apprehension, fear, and just overall more moralistic standpoints behind using AI. So on this episode, we're going to talk about it. We're actually going to dive in and take a look at the benefits and negativities of AI. Number one, right off the bat, is efficiency. And it's the time saving, the way it can automate tasks, especially mundane tasks like repetitive stuff like editing, keyword tagging, things like that. It makes it so much easier to navigate for artists like myself. Like I do like a lot of copywriting for different companies. I do like a lot of writing based things. And while I do enjoy using my brain to write out things like scripts and creative works, when it comes to marketing and things like that, I don't necessarily want to put all my brain work into writing captions for ads when I can go ahead and just use ChatGPT or whatever to formulate those for me and save me hours and hours of time. So that's actually probably like one of the biggest uses for me. But things like Photoshop, for example, they have this new thing called generative fill. It has this auto masking thing where you can take a picture, select a part of it, and change it into something else. Now, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in the episode, but this is where I think this is a complete game changer, especially for people who work in the marketing fields or some type of advertising, a massive time saver. Now, we'll talk about the moralistic standpoint later, but in terms of just getting stuff done, it has been crazy. And by automating these processes, artists can really redirect their focus towards higher level creative decisions. And that's what it's about for me. I think the most important thing about this discussion is time. For me, I think as an artist, your time is your most valuable thing that you have in your arsenal. The more time you have to put towards something, the better the results. And so when you're a polyartist, you get spread pretty thin. You know, you're over here editing video, you're over here writing scripts, you're over here shooting photos, you're over here doing whatever. And if you're trying to really get your time back, it's about delegating responsibility. Now, before AI, what would you do? You would hire somebody, right? You would go ahead and be like, hey, I'm going to hire you to focus just on social media content for the next 6 months or whatever. And that would give you more time back because you yourself are not putting your time into social media content. So that's kind of how I think about it. If I could use AI as a way to maximize my time in the things I love to do, then I'm all for it. Another part of it is idea generation. So tools like ChatGPT and MidJourney, they really help generate the initial concepts and also give feedback. And for me, I think that it's almost like having a collaborator I can pitch an idea to ChatGPT where I'm like, hey, I have this story idea for whatever, boo, boo, boo. And I put it into ChatGPT and it will spit back out ideas and how to approach those ideas. So I use it all the time in terms of just like helping me get all my thoughts in order. And, you know, I'm a little scatterbrained. I think that's part of the nature of being a poly artist, is the fact that, you know, our minds are all over the place. And oftentimes you just need a moment to be able to kind of organize it. And that's one thing I really love about AI, especially with ChatGPT voice feature on here, to where you can literally just have a conversation with it. Because oftentimes I'll be sitting here and I'll have an idea and I'll be like, hey, boom, 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 boom. I have an idea about whatever is going on, right? And if I do that, it will take that idea and like kind of process it for me, like kind of ask me some questions back, but then also give me a list of how to approach it, how to execute it, et cetera, so forth. And what's nice, especially with ChatGPT, is that it's stored. So it's in a folder or in a little, you know, save area to where I can access that information later and continue that conversation. So it's really good for just generating ideas and kind of just putting things in order for you. I use it all the time just for that, because I have a lot of ideas up here. And if I could just attach them and put them somewhere else, before all these AI apps actually came out, I was putting all my ideas into Google Notes, which is, you know, like a little note application similar to iPad or whatever. And, you know, it's a novel idea, but the idea is that when I look at my notes and it just says basketball or it just says whatever, it doesn't actually give a clear sense as to what I was trying to do. So when I had those conversations with ChatGPT, it kind of takes that idea and turns it into a complete thought with execution. So when I go back and look at those notes, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. This is probably by far one of the most important things that it offers. So in this ongoing battle between AI and the human mind, one of the most important things that you can do is drink water. Yes, water, people. Drinking water is important because it keeps you hydrated, keeps you focused, allows your body to remain fluid. You don't want to be all dry on the inside, especially your mind. You don't want dry brain. Dry brain's bad. But also, I'm going to go ahead and down my daily shot of Magic Mind. Now, if you've been watching or listening to this podcast, you already know what Magic Mind is. But if you don't, listen up, because this thing, which is a mental performance shot, which is like insane, right? To really think about it. Like a drink that you can take and it actually makes you focus better, makes you think better, makes you more creative. That's what this does. And that's why I love it so much, because it's literally like a game changer in my productivity and my creativity, to where I can take one of these and lock in on a project for several hours without any distractions or anything like that. Especially if you kind of have an ADHD brain like me, where I'm just all over the place. This will help you lock in. This is like literally just like, boom, locked in. And so it has all kinds of cool stuff like nootropics, ashwagandha, mushroom, cordyceps. It has 100% of your daily vitamins, D and C. So you take one of these, you're good for the day on the vitamin D and C. So this also uses ceremonial grade matcha, which helps the caffeine kind of ease in there. It's not like a shot where you just drink it and then you're wired for the next 4 hours. This is a very subtle vibe to it that kind of just keeps you energized. You can take it with your coffee. It's not a substitute, but you can actually take it with your coffee, and it actually adds like a good partner. Because with coffee, you know, you have that edge where you're coming down and all of a sudden you're just kind of like, eh. This doesn't do this. This is a very smooth, laid back kind of vibe. Like you could probably drink this and read some books, but then you can also drink this and maybe go exercise. That's how versatile this drink is. So shout out to Magic Mind, because, you know, they've been hooking me up with these and I love them. I think that they're great. I think that they're kind of a game changer for poly artists. So me and Magic Mind, we teamed up again to give you a deal on this incredible mental performance shot. So if you head over to magicmind.com/Jaron40, that's JARON 40, you can get 40% off your first purchase for Magic Mind and really get a chance to try it out. And I'm telling you, if you try this out and like get like a little 12-pack or whatever and just try it for like a week or week and a half, you will really notice the results. Trust me, because they gave me a pack and I was like, I'm skeptical. But then when I started using it and I started to feel the energy of the Magic Mind drink actually work and how my performance literally enhanced as it says it was going to. I was like, cool, I'm rocking with Magic Mind for the rest of my life. So shout out to Magic Mind because they're dope. So make sure you check them out. When it comes to AI, it's about enhanced creativity and new possibilities. Now, this is a big debate because oftentimes people are like, well, AI is not art. But my argument to that is the fact that AI literally cannot exist, at least as of right now, in the world without human input. It's taking human experiences, human data, human photos, and human whatever, and taking that and creating its own thing. And I believe that that's always going to be the case. Now, maybe not, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the episode, but I feel like this is an opportunity for a lot of artists to really expand their creativity and their opportunities and their chances to do weird stuff. I guess that's the best way to put it, is just to do weird stuff. Because when I use AI, at least in the completely creative sense, I use it to do things that I'm not capable of typically. I can't draw, I can't do, et cetera, so forth. Now, obviously, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, there's an argument of like, well, if you can't draw, you should learn, or if you can't draw, you should go hire somebody who can. And I agree with you on that. However, some of these ideas are not ideas that I'm trying to push to ultimate fruition. Sometimes I'm just trying to have fun. So, or just generate a concept and maybe just get a visual for something. So the idea of being able to hop in there and just do a flying bear that looks like a griffin on top of Empire State Building, and it generates that, that's cool. I'm not going to do anything with that in the grand scheme of things, but the fact that I can get that creative burst out and actually visualize it, it's pretty awesome. Now, when it comes to creating a new art form, which is what a lot of artists are saying is happening here, it really is about blending traditional styles with digital innovations. So for example, you have GAN, which is a generative adversarial network, which is art when it combines classical painting styles with modern digital aesthetics, producing entirely unique pieces. So that's kind of the big issue when it comes to AI, is the idea that it's taking all this data from other sources and putting it together to create new art. And you could argue that's a new art form. Now, please argue that, because I'm not going to sit here and debate about exactly what AI is in the artistic world until we get a little bit further down the road. But for me, it's always been a tool. It's never been a replacement. It's always been a tool. But that might change. And that's why I'm kind of tentative about it. And that's why we're even making this video, so we can have these conversations. AI democratizes the creative process by making advanced tools accessible. So platforms like Canva, for example, they use AI to assist non-designers in creating professional visuals. And so it allows polyartists to experiment across different mediums without a lot of training. Now, depending on who you ask, this might be good, might be bad, but average Joe can hop on Canva and remove the background of a photo, go find some cool shapes, et cetera, so forth. Then this is all AI generated. But these tools have always existed. I think that there is a veil of AI being pulled over machine learned tools that had already existed for the sake of the dollar. But that's a whole different conversation. I might make a whole different video about that. But when it comes to AI, it's also about the exploration of uncharted territories. So AI generated music, for example, it allows you to create compositions that blend multiple genres and inspires artists to explore new soundscapes. But, most of it sucks. And I'm just being real about it. Most AI music sucks. And I think that's because the missing component of that is the passion and soul. Now, with that said, you can generate decent sounding music through AI for marketing purposes, or commercial background music, or et cetera, so forth. And mark my words, that might change. I think later on down the line, we might end up seeing AI Grammy winners and AI platinum artists, et cetera, so forth. But as of now, it's, like I said before, a tool. And so if you really understand that these are just tools, this really helps polyartists break creative blocks by providing cool, novel starting points in your creative process. It gives you a place to kind of jump off from. I'm not saying that you should replace your entire workflow with AI, but maybe asking the robot how they would approach something or how they would see something might unlock some new synapses and pathways. So another part of it too is the collaboration aspect of it. Like I said earlier, like using AI really is kind of like having a little assistant that kind of helps me kind of figure things out, where I'm like, hey, I have this idea, and I tell the idea, and then it's like, all right, so this is how I would approach the idea. And some of these AI apps, they can execute on the idea as well. So understanding that, where it's like, hey, I want to do this, 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 and this. And it's like, cool, well, we're going to generate this photo for you. We're going to set this up with your copywriting and do this and that. And then I can go over it and be like, okay, maybe we use a different photo. Maybe we use a different caption, and then release it. As I said before, it just saves so much time. And so AI tool also provides feedback too, where I can take something that I've written and send it to AI, and it will, proofread it. And it will also maybe suggest a different approach, maybe a different structure. And these are things that you would usually have to go seek out in the world from whoever, right? But if it's all on your phone, you're saving yourself a lot of time, and it allows you to kind of put more into it. Because if I could sit here and just go back and forth with AI instead of, waiting for whoever to proofread my stuff, I can do several iterations of my work until it's perfect on a much faster pace. So, when it comes to image generation, it's always a touchy topic, but that's always something that I think about when it comes to being able to have multiple iterations of something and seeing things from different angles. So I use AI a lot when it comes to storyboarding and generating ideas for films and pictures, where it's like, I can type in the scene that I want to visualize and then use it to, actually make the scene. Now, obviously I'm not going to use that photo, but I can kind of have an idea in terms of like, okay, well, that's kind of how maybe I'll do the lighting that way, or maybe I don't like that way that looks. Maybe we'll adjust that and do something different, versus being on set or going out and testing things, hoping that it works out. So another aspect of it too is reducing the creative fatigue, if I can learn how to talk straight. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, is the idea that as poly artists, we handle a lot. We are doing multiple things at any given point in time. And just by handling the heavy lifting of the idea generation aspect of it, AI reduces the mental strain on artists and allows them to focus on refining and personalizing their creative outputs, and allows you to maintain your unique voice while leveraging the assistance of the AI. So like I said, I treat AI mostly as an assistant. I'm not telling it to do the work for me. I'm helping it, or it's helping me see the best way to approach the work. Or it might take away some of the more mundane things, like, hey, I'm going to generate 40 YouTube tags for this video that you're uploading because you took the transcript and you gave me the transcript of the video that you edited. So now I know what the video is about. So, but here are some tags that you may not have considered when you go to upload that video, which is one thing I use for all the time, where I'm like, hey, take this transcript of this video, go ahead and give me a summary, write a blog about it, give me tags, etc., so forth. And it does all that. These are all things that I would have to do on my own. That's kind of mundane. It can get very tedious after some time. So we're going to talk about the downside a little bit. And I think this is where things get a little scary, especially for artists, because there's a lot of fear behind AI. And so we're going to talk about it a little bit. I think one of the biggest issues comes down to the loss of artistic authenticity and the lack of emotional depth. So AI generated art, while visually impressive, often lacks the emotional nuance that comes with being a human, right? So for example, you can get AI to make a Picasso style photo of whatever, but they can't infuse the personal struggles, historical context, and vibes that Picasso created when he created his work, which is the ultimate beauty of art itself, right? It's a form of storytelling, to be able to express yourself in a unique way that only you can. Sure, the AI can replicate that in terms of creating the art that looks similar, but it doesn't have the context. It doesn't have the mojo, the nuances that makes it great. So that's something that's really a fear for artists, because as AI becomes more and more popular, you're starting to see the story be sucked out of the conversation. It's no longer about the story. It's no longer about the nuance. It's no longer about the vibes. And that's a big fear for me, because as you know, if you watch previous episodes or just know me in general, I'm all about the story. I'm all about well, how did you get to this point to create this piece of art to begin with? It's not just creating it. It's about the journey that you took to get to that point to create the art. And that's what makes art so beautiful. So that's something that I really, really worry about. And I don't think that's something that's going to improve because, as AI continues to become more and more advanced, you're going to start to see it kind of carve its own story, but it's not the same story or never will be as the human experience. So we'll see how that goes. Another issue when it comes to AI is generic outputs, because these algorithms are trained on vast data sets, which often result in art that mimics existing styles, and it struggles to become innovative beyond its training data. And I think you're kind of already seeing this as artists, like when you look at certain photos and you just know it's AI. It can look perfect, but it has that AI gloss to it, the AI lighting to it, right? Or the eyes are just a little bit off, right? And you're starting to see like these homogenized outputs that reduces the uniqueness when it comes to the creativity aspect of it. And, I think that over time, that's not something that's going to change. It's only going to get worse to the point where as AI becomes more and more advanced, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between a photo that someone took versus a photo that someone generated. We're already kind of at that point right now. And as things become more and more homogenized, the human side of things, you're gonna have to see humans kind of step it up a little bit in terms of making sure that there's a way to not be confused with AI. Because as AI becomes more human-like, that line becomes more blurred, right? And this is going to be a generational thing. I don't think AI is going anywhere, right? Like, it's not going to disappear one day. It's only going to become more and more integrated into our lives. And this is a really interesting turning point in our human existence because of the idea that everything's changing from this point. And when you see AI generate an image and you're like, oh, that looks all right. It has 6 fingers, or the eye is over here, or whatever. Keep in mind that that's the worst it's going to be. It's going to only get better and only improve. So that's a scary thought, right? 5 years from now, you're going to literally be able to generate completely lifelike images that look, sound, feel, whatever, exactly like the human experience. And so that's where it gets scary for me. But there's a lot of skepticism behind AI too, because, it comes down to authenticity. But according to surveys, many art collectors prefer human-made works, obviously, because it's about the personal journey and the connection and the intent, et cetera, so forth. But as I just said, I think as time goes on, that desire for that connection is only going to become smaller and smaller and smaller, especially with these younger generations, Generation Alpha, generation, whatever comes after that. They're going to be raised in an entirely AI world, right? And think about the internet revolution, where, I was born in 1984. I'm 4 years old at this point, and I was blessed enough to live in a world where the internet wasn't prevalent. It existed, but it wasn't prevalent. And I got to see that transition, especially with the rise of, the smartphone, the computer, faster internet speeds. I got to see that transition where now the internet is completely ingrained into our lives. It is a staple in the vast majority of the human experience in the world. And there's a point in time where it wasn't. And we're almost seeing the same thing. We are seeing the same thing when it comes to AI, where AI is in its infant stages, and we're starting to see it become more and more integrated into our society. Like my son, he was born in the world before AI existed, but there's going to be the kids being born now, where AI is going to be all they know. And if it's all they know, you start to kind of devalue the previous human-driven works that came before it. So that's a big fear. We'll see how it goes. And now this one's a big issue. We're talking about ethical and legal issues, copyright infringement, et cetera, so forth. I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard the news, the articles, the lawsuits, but, AI models like Stable Diffusion and MidJourney have already been criticized for using copyright works to train their algorithms without the creator's consent. This has sparked lawsuits from artists demanding recognition and compensation for the intellectual property. And honestly, I agree with them. And it's a little shady because the way that these AI sites are collecting data isn't the most moralistic, right? They're just kind of hopping on YouTube and, training their AI on a bunch of YouTube videos or a bunch of art or a bunch of photos on deviant art or whatever. And that doesn't seem fair to the artist, because if I can go and recreate literally almost any artist in the world, if I wanted to go and make a one-for-one Picasso, for the sake of this conversation, I could do that. But Picasso's not going to get any credit for that. Why? Because it's derivative, right? It's not him making it, but they use his inspiration. So that's going to always be a big issue when it comes to AI, is the idea of, well, what's intellectual property when it comes to a robot? Also, bias in AI models. The data that's used to train AI models often contains inherent biases. So, for example, text-based models like ChatGPT may reflect cultural biases presented in the training data, which affect the creative outputs and perpetuating stereotypes. So, misinformation, deep fakes, things like that, to where AI content can be used maliciously to create disinformation, is complicating the landscape for authentic digital art and damaging the trust in digital media. At the end of the day, fake news and misinformation will probably be the end of human civilization, if we're being real about it. And if you have AI perpetuating this train, it's only going to get worse. And one thing I haven't talked about this entire video is the concept of AI hallucinations. Now, if you're familiar with AI, and this is not new to you, but if this is a new thing for you, AI hallucination is almost exactly what it sounds like, to where you can ask AI a question and it may not know it, or it may not have access to the information, or it may be overwhelmed with data, et cetera, so forth. And it will just make shit up. It will just make stuff up, whatever. Like, you could ask it something and it will just answer you. Whether it's right or wrong, it will just answer you. And I think it's trained that way because, based off my experience, I've actually never had AI be like, I don't know the answer. Rather, it's just going to make, if it doesn't know the answer, it just makes it up. Now, this comes down to the responsibility of the human to go and fact check things and make sure that things are being accurately said and the information that you're giving is actually true. But a lot of people aren't going to do that. They're going to kind of treat it the same way that they treat Google, right? Where if you ask AI something and it gives you an answer, you're going to take that answer for what it is, because it's AI, right? It's the robots, right? So whatever it says goes. And you're already kind of seeing this with Google's AI, to where if you Google something now, you get the AI-driven response before you get the results, et cetera, so forth. That AI-driven response is basically a combination of all the different Google responses and Google results turned into an AI response, which means that there's a high chance that there's a lot of misinformation and false data in that AI response. But because of how it's positioned, you might read that first and take that for what it is, versus continuing to scroll and find the actual authentic articles. I could talk about that forever and ever and ever, but just know that it's a major problem that we have to figure out before we can really see AI flourish in its ultimate form. Now, this is another big issue when it comes to AI, and that's job displacement. I think artists are afraid that they're going to lose their fucking jobs. And that's a fair fear, because especially when you're an artist and you're seeing AI really kind of corner the lanes of artistry before, curing cancer or revolutionizing the construction industry or something like that. You're seeing AI do video editing. You're seeing AI do graphic designing. You're seeing AI doing copywriting. You're seeing AI doing all this stuff that creators do to make money. And so you start to get that fear of, well, is my job obsolete? Why would I go to, local business X and try to pitch them something when they have Canva and CapCut and ChatGPT to make all their content for them? Now, this is actually a very important part of the conversation, because I believe that no matter what happens with AI, we as artists have to find a balance and responsibility. We have to embrace AI, because if you don't embrace it, what's going to happen is that you're going to be squeezed out. So my suggestion to you is that you do go learn these apps. You do go learn how AI works. You don't have to support it wholeheartedly and be like, well, I'm going to use AI to replace it. But what's going to end up happening is that when you go and try to get a gig somewhere, et cetera, so forth, over here at whatever place trying to do some content for them, they might straight up ask you like, hey, what's your experience with AI? Like, are you familiar with ChatGPT? Are you familiar with all these different AI softwares? And if you're not, they're going to be more likely to hire somebody who is versus hiring you. And so one way to think about it is that essentially AI is creating a new role, a new job market where AI experts can, sell their abilities to companies that need that automation or just need that content creation. Because if I'm running a laundromat, I don't have time to, type in prompts and generate images, et cetera, so forth. So I can hire someone else to do that. And if I hire someone else to do that, that person needs to know all the different AI structures, and they still have to have a creative edge, because even writing prompts is a creative process. You have to know what to say to the AI in order to get what you want out of it. So I implore you artists to really, really dive into AI to a degree to where you know your way around image generation, you know your way around these LLMs, and you basically know your way around the most important AIs. Because as you guys probably have figured out by now, there's a lot of AI bullshit out there. A lot of people treating this as a cash cow. But some of these AIs are here to stay, particularly ChatGPT, Claude, things like that. These are going to be here to stay. So my suggestion as an artist, as a polyartist, is to learn them, or you might get left in the dust. Now, this is an extra long episode, but I think this last topic is especially important to talk about because I think this is where a lot of the fear comes from. And we're talking about artificial general intelligence, also known as AGI. So what exactly is AGI? AGI is basically the ultimate form. It's perfect cell. It's Super Saiyan of AI. And what this is essentially it can perform any intellectual task that a human can. This includes creative and artistic styles. So there's a lot of potential here, right? With AGI, collaboration can go well beyond tool-based assistance to fully realize partnerships, like actually having an assistant go and execute some of these things for you, where the AI understands the artistic intent, it offers suggestions, and it aligns with your ultimate vision, and it adapts. That's what AGI is. And it sounds cool, especially when you look at the influence it can have across multiple mediums. We're talking about blending music, blending visual arts, and storytelling in ways that you haven't quite thought of. If you want to be frank about it, AGI and AI is the ultimate polyartist, to where it can do anything, right? In an artistic field. And it sounds like a dream, but it can get kind of scary too. So we're going to talk about some of the benefits and the risks of AGI. So AGI can help discover new artistic movements by analyzing data and generating human insights that humans can't even do themselves. And I'm talking about compiling years and years and years and years of worth of data, decades worth of data, that in seconds, especially when you include quantum computing, you could take a whole century's worth of data and give it to AI, and it can give you information in a heartbeat. It would take humans years to compile that information. So that's something that's pretty cool. But you have to think about the erosion of human existence. As AI becomes more and more popular, you start to kind of figure out that, man, this might be taking some jobs. This might be destroying some industries. This might actually be harming the human experience in this world. And that remains to be seen. I'm not trying to be a fearmonger, but if you watch the movies like The Matrix and Terminator, there's always this fear that AI is going to destroy human existence. And I'm not going to say that it's not. I can't say that. But as of right now, human existence is basically what's keeping AI alive. AI cannot exist without human input. At some point in time, human input will no longer matter as much, and that's when things are going to get scary. And that concern can go pretty far because, eventually they might push human artists past their margins. And it's going to result in the future where most media and entertainment is AI generated. And this will reduce opportunities for, people like us to contribute to the artistic experience. I think there's always a fear, especially when you look at how Hollywood responded to AI and how you're seeing these AI generated videos and all this stuff, that the human experience is essentially going to be removed. And they might be right. And it's really up to us as polyartists to learn how to adapt to that. But I wouldn't be surprised if Netflix has a feature 10 years from now to where you type in a prompt and you could create any type of movie you want. And that has no artistic input at all whatsoever. And that's a scary thought. And this talks about the value of art. The ease of creation of AGI, it might lower the perceived value and the barrier of entry. If anybody can produce a masterpiece, is it really a masterpiece? Especially when you look at it from the perspective of, oh, it's just a pretty picture. And you remove the artist's journey and you remove the struggle. It gets scary. And we'll see how it plays out. I think that I like to remain positive when it comes to the concept of working with technology and working with AI and working with computers to enhance the creative experience. But there's always that fear in the back of artists' mind that one, we might lose our job, and two, we might lose our whole humanity. But we will see. Will the future of art be harmonious collaboration between human and machines, or will we struggle to see the soul of creativity itself as life continues to move on? We will see. I think that we have a very interesting road ahead of us. So my suggestion is to do what you can to adapt to the times, learn about AI. You don't have to use it in everything that you do, but take the time to actually figure out what this means for you as an artist and how you can implement that into your artistry. Now, this is a longer episode of the PolyArtist Podcast. I do appreciate you guys listening. If you did listen to this whole episode, I love you all. We'll be back with another episode very, very soon. I think the next one we're going to talk about money making, how to make money as a polyartist. And if you do enjoy these episodes, please like, subscribe, follow, clip it up, put it on TikTok, etc. so forth. And keep supporting the PolyArtist Podcast. Make sure you follow my channel, Jaron Ikner. After the podcast is over, we're going to get back to thought pieces about movies, film, TV, etc. so forth. So stay tuned to that because I have lots and lots and lots of thoughts that are coming from my mind, not from the mind of AI. Anyways, I love you guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.